And so I'm going to introduce Kaylee and Pam, whom you all probably know, but I get to introduce them anyways. And they're going to just start the conversation by sharing what's going on their farms. And hopefully that'll stimulate the juices and we'll just have a really good dialogue. So Kaylee Hess and her partner, Brian Wyrick, own Harlequin Produce based in Arlene, Montana. Harlequin Produce offers distinctly colorful, seasonally flavored, sustainably grown organic produce to communities in the Missoula and Jocko valleys through CSAs and through Western Montana Growers Cooperative, which as one of the co-op's farm members. And Purple Frog Gardens is a family market farm in Whitefish, Montana, owned by Pam Garraway and partner Mike Jopek. Since 1991, they have slowly coaxed this farm out of rocky clay soil with the help of countless volunteers, community members, and young people, using sustainable agricultural practices that build healthy soils and nutritious food. Their tagline is, "We grow food and community." So I'll let you two take it away. Whoever would like to go first, just let us know what's going on.
I can start. Yeah, so Robin introduced, a good summary of our farm. We're here in Arlee. I guess I made just a few notes of maybe like three main ways that we pivoted this year with COVID. And probably the first one was that we stopped doing the Clark Fork Farmers Market and we expanded our CSA to 450 members. So we started the season planning for 250 and we finished it right around 450. There was just incredible demand this spring, and how farmers market was going to be just seemed so unknown. Missoula really limited the first 6 weeks of market here to keep numbers down. And so, as all you market growers know, you need the people to sell the produce. So we made that switch to CSA, and really it kind of turned out to be it was like the silver lining in this, and that it's probably not something the farm would ever have done, was to stop selling at the farmers market. It was a pretty big outlet for us. We've been doing it, for the last 10 years. We have a good following there. But it shifted our week, it freed up Friday. It gave everyone, full Friday or Saturday, Sunday weekends. And we run a customizable CSA. And so we were really able to still kind of move that smaller amount of produce through our CSA. And so I felt like between our wholesale accounts and our summer CSA, we were really able to move what we needed to. The other thing we ended up doing was, in lieu of market, during tomato season, we'll sell a lot of cases of tomatoes at market. And so we just ended up running some online sales. We would, for the month of September, we did 4 online sales. And that was all pre-order, and we brought produce into Missoula, and we had one in Arlee, and then we ended up going over to Helena. And that was another, it worked great. It was nice to know what you sold. It was nice to not bring produce to market and then have it, end up in the compost, because in the heat of the summer, it's just really hard to keep quality up on produce at the end of market. So those online, one-time sales worked out really well for us. And I guess probably the last thing that we ended up doing this year is just to try to minimize the amount of people on the farm and coming and going. We switched to all full-time employees. We have in the past, hired we'll have a base crew of full-time people of about 6 folks, 5 folks, and then I'll hire some part-time people to kind of be here on days where it's really heavy. And this year we went all full-time, and that's the way we had hired in the past, and just kind of the last couple of years, just how the labor pool was. We ended up with some more part-time people, and that was also a great thing to switch back to, because you just have a larger crew there on a regular basis and they see the whole system, and you have less people kind of coming and going that only know a few little pieces here and there. And so I think just the cohesiveness of our crew this summer was It was really great. And I guess, going forward, I think, next year we'll try to run a CSA that large again. There was, I hope out of all of this that we continue to see the demand for local produce that we saw in the Missoula Valley. I hope that lasts with us, um, and we can just kind of keep working on these kind of direct marketing switches that we made this summer.
You're gonna go back to the market or no?
I think at this point, no. I guess the way I see it is like maybe we would go in August, when our August through September markets were our big markets. And I think if we're able to meet that CSA goal again, I don't think we need to. Yeah, I don't think we need to. And I think just kind of looking at, our total labor versus our gross sales this year, I mean, I think it was definitely a more efficient switch for the farm to drop the farmer's market.
Yeah, they're logistically tough.
They're challenging, and we'll have to have at least 2 or 3 people. And then August, when we have all the produce and we're roasting peppers there, I mean, that was like a 6-person extravaganza. So to just be able to, we pack all of our CSA shares on Wednesday and we got them out the door on Wednesday and Thursday in Missoula, or with 2 deliveries. Yeah, we could move. We made up for basically our direct sales by doing that by the week.
What about you, Pam? How was life without market?
It was pretty great. I don't think we're ever coming back. Sorry. We might come back to peddle some garlic.
You two are going to start a new trend. Farmers markets are going to crash.
I don't know. I mean, so what we did was we saw that our restaurant sales were probably going to drop. We expanded our CSAs. We're so much smaller than Kaylee. We went from 40 to 60 and did pop-up drive-through sales. People just drove through. We didn't let anyone on the farm all summer long. Our volunteer program, I do Care Farm with adults with disabilities. We shut everything down, no volunteers. We do some CSA trades for labor. We didn't let them come here. My mom has ALS and lives with us, and just the logistics of figuring out how to keep everything COVID safe, and just seemed easier to not bring in many other people other than the 11 farm people that lived here, including my mom. So our farm team was really great. We, like I said, we upped the CSA number. Our local health food store bought more than they ever had before. They were incredibly supportive. And then our technological pop-up sales, pre-orders went really well too. So Tuesdays, which is usually our market day, we actually had 2 farm employees working the drive-through sale, and Mike and I took the dog for a walk. And then like at 6:30, when the pop-up sale was done, we were thinking about how market was still going, and we were really done for the day. So at first, some of our CSA customers that did the pickup on Tuesday said they still were going to go to market, wanted to come to market. We said, well, our CSA starts earlier than market, so they had to come here no matter what for that. And we said, if in 3 weeks you still want to go to market, we'll give you your money back or whatever, but we're not going. And then by the 3rd week, they were like, we're going to just keep coming here. So it seemed like customers were pretty happy about that. Yeah, I think, one other thing we did pretty early in the season when we saw what was happening was we were really hopeful that a lot of people would start plants and would want bedding plants. So we upped our bedding plant game, and people came and bought bedding plants. And I think people were really interested. I hope that sticks with people being really wanting to grow their own gardens, and we'll continue to, grow a lot of bedding plants, or grow. It's all relative. A lot for us is probably nothing for Judy from Terrapin Farm, because she just produces so many plants. But Yeah. And I feel overall the season was pretty good. We're like going to be right around the same number totals as other years. I guess one thing I would say that another farmer who had come to alternative spring break when he was a college student just encouraged us to apply for the CFAP2 money. And I just jumped through those hoops, and it seems like it's not there. They weren't very difficult. Contact your local farm service agency, and you have until December 11th to apply for that COVID money. And that might be able to, I mean, I'm sure we're all eligible. So I don't know what it's going to be yet, but the farm service agency lady I talked to was really nice and supportive.
We already did it. It's easy. It goes through without any questions. And I think they give you, I think it was 10% of your prior year sales.
Great.
And I think it's like no questions that you don't have to show a loss or anything. It's just 10%. I called Kaylee today to be like, hey, by the way, unless of course you make over $900,000 a year and then you're not eligible. So there is that constraint.
Just a like side note story. I don't know if you guys remember Ken Meter. He was an economist that came and talked. And so the farmer that had come to alternative spring break at the farm, I was like, I don't know. I feel like we did pretty good. And he's like, I had taken the alternative spring break students to Ken Meter's talk when he was here that week. And he said, Pam, just remember that economist guy that you dragged us to. And he talked about how federal infusion of money to the local food system was so important and helpful. And so it was just kind of cool that, you know, however many years later, something that we exposed somebody to ended up supporting us back, because he was the one that really encouraged us to just apply and jump through the hoops. So thanks, Max Smith.
Who else? Max, what's happening in the southeast corner or eastern half?
Well, I'm in Helena.
Oh,
Yeah, my brother's out in Roundup.
the middle.
So I was muted. It looks like we got a number of farmers here, and it'd be fun to just hear you guys all talk shop. But what's interesting to hear developing, because in Helena we're actually trying to get more growers, and the few we've had have either gotten tired or it's just been too much of a struggle. And if on your end, you're able to do what you need to do with a kind of expanding your CSA base, it kind of makes us think in Helena, it's not so much like getting growers to the market as it's a whole bunch of other things have to happen to have the demand there. And we're trying to imagine a local food system for the community as opposed to farmers trying to figure out just how to be a market farmer. So I just say that as kind of where I'm coming from, but I'm actually, just to hear you guys talk shop, I'm learning a lot. So, you know, keep at it.
I've always wondered why Helena's always been sort of like a pocket. I know farmers have tried, but we've had it for 14 years, and there's always been talk of like Helena would be a great place because the climate's not that bad relatively compared to anywhere else in Montana, and it has a good town, and you have the state legislature, and yet of all the communities, Helena seems to have, for some reason, struggled to get the farms to stick.
Yeah, our agricultural base is not quite there's not quite the legacy transitional old farms into town kind of. I mean, there are a few out there, but it's kind of like starting over and reinventing it. You know, we have people now that are talking about trying to get a year-round greenhouse going. One of the ways we're thinking of growing stuff here is to work with the food bank and the school lunch programs and try to get more demand for nutritionally dense food through those channels. But as far as eaters, it's people love the farmers market, but some of our best produce vendors are all from the west side. The people come over from Missoula. We have a couple good local growers, but the ethic isn't here. We don't have the students. We don't have the same idea that eating local is how to be a good citizen. I mean, there's a number. It's just that there's a smaller percentage of people that think that way, I think.
That's telling, given the state legislatures there.
It seems like if there,
of course,
there has been a lot of interest for a while of farmers around Missoula who want to farm here, and I think a lot of the market is somewhat saturated. And so I feel like as a new farmer, if that's what they want to do is farm, then Helena seems like a pretty wide open market. So maybe working on just
if they got the
making
skills,
that connection between aspiring farmers and a leased piece of ground would be a really beneficial, potentially beneficial move.
Yeah, good idea.
I do want to just give a shout out to Jessica Peterson and her medicinal herb apothecary over there in Helena. I think that's super.
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
She's great.
That's a really
You can't
neat.
buy from her. You have to sign up.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the possibility of, is there a reimagining of farmers markets? I mean, Todd and Brooke, how are you thinking about farmers markets these days?
I want to never go to them again.
Really? Is that where you guys are at, Todd?
I don't know. It's just so much. I mean, we do 3 a week. So I guess put that in a perspective, it becomes a logistical, I don't want to say nightmare, but it's nice to be, as you, Pam and Kaylee just mentioned, it's nice to be on your farm growing food and not just always having to be somewhere else doing a pop-up, taking it down, coming home 3 nights a week.
Yeah, I've kind of reflected on our, absence of market this year. I mean, markets are a tremendous amount of work for the growers, and they're obviously a good thing for the community members, but is there a more efficient way to get that produce direct from the farmer to the community member? And it sure seems like these pop-up sales or CSA programs where you can move the same amount of produce in 2 hours instead of 7 or 9 hours.
Right.
And that was just something I mean, you just don't even, it's scary to take a leap that big. But then if you can make it work, it's like, wow, this is better for the farmer to not do this.
I think where we were at is, I mean, part of it is farmers markets and CSA pickups can be inconvenient to some degree. I think it keeps some people out of the local food system just because it's such a small window of time. So one thing we were looking at this season was a different approach was like, what about a retail store somewhere that's accessible? So it's like a farmer's market that's open every day, all day. And
Yeah,
there's a lot of overhead.
We have like a handful of different drops ranging from like private residences in Missoula to retail places. And something we did this year that we hadn't done before was actually have a volunteer at each drop. So our truck just went around, dropped shares. We traded a volunteer a CSA share, and they were there for the hour and a half, helping members find their box, like getting the pallet, organizing the empty boxes. And that was, I think that was really nice probably for our members to just see a face every week. We did it for a COVID reason, not wanting all of our members to like touch everybody else's box, so that there was just less touching. But I felt like that was something that we'll probably do again for managing those drop sites.
How many drop sites did you have?
We have sorry, our one people come to the farm. So Big Sky, Western, Central, no. 7. We have
Including the
7.
farm?
7 in Missoula that were split between 2 days.
I think another thing is that people like coming to the farm. You know, they want to see farmers in their native habitat. And I don't know, even though we didn't let people get out of their car and it just had set up a loop drive through, I just still think people were, I mean, we live really close to town, you know, it's no extra effort to drive to where we live compared to farmer's market, really. But I do
Yeah, I think you're in a spot where that's an asset for you. I
Yeah.
think for us, we're a little too far to get a lot of people, and I think where Kaylee's at, maybe the same thing. It's almost easier to bring it to people than to have everybody in their own car drive to our farm. Is you start to look at like, does that make sense?
Yeah. And you guys are bigger numbers. Both of you are way bigger numbers than us. So
Pam, you know, you have in years past had the salad barn. Is that something that, and I don't have any idea what the economics of that are for you, but is that something that, you know, in a future where we don't concern ourselves with COVID, you might go back into, or what are your thoughts on that?
we're not sure. It's the first year that we've had no people winter over with us and no people returning. Everybody's just kind of gotten to that phase of their life where they're ready to do something new. And so we're kind of at a blank slate right now, and we're going to spend the winter just sort of evaluating what we want to do. As far as how many people we want to bring back in, or is it just a time to pivot to something a little bit different? So that's to be discussed.
That sounds like an enjoyable process.
It's going to be really fun. I'm really looking forward to it. You know, you just get into your rut and you're just doing stuff because it's what you have to do. And I feel like we kind of have a little breathing space right now. So we're going to figure it out.
I do think it broke customer expectation for a year so that you can come back with a whole new model and no one really is going to know. They're not going to remember what it was 2 years ago.
Right.
Brooke, why are you just laughing? Come on, tell us about your markets.
It's the unmute mute situation of Zoom. I'm like, it's awkward. We honestly have been trying to slowly create an exit strategy from the Whitefish Farmers Market, and there's reasons that we continue to do it. You know, a little bit of a financial piece. Mostly, though, I would say we go to that market for community.
Guilt is the word you're looking for.
Guilt. But it's community recognition. It's people want to see the farmer. They want to engage with you. But, you know, we've had our online farmers market that we've done for several years. And one of the things is that we usually close that during the summertime because there's the physical farmers markets. And this year we kept that open in addition to our CSA. And so that was fine. They could come pick up. We're still doing it. I was just packing orders for it today. And it's dry. It was curbside. They don't get out of their car. People still want to get out of their car. They feel funny having their groceries delivered to their car. But I'm like, no, you're supposed to stay in your car. It's okay. Just pop the trunk or whatever. And so we've done that this year a little differently. I guess just by keeping it open all summer long. And we did shift and have a few more CSAs than we did in the past years, but maybe only like 20 more. But that's a lot for our farm because the lion's share of our sales go to restaurants. And so we wanted to keep our fingers crossed that they weren't going to all be shut for the whole summer and hope that they would be there, but having no idea what capacity. That's kind of what we did this year, and it worked out. We were really busy.
And how were I'm curious about the restaurants in the Whitefish area versus Missoula, or Helena, if you know, Max. But I'm, you know, just because one is more tourist driven than I think the other. So just curious.
Well, we were busy, that's for sure. But you had the interruptions of like an employee had a COVID case, and so they're shut down for 48 hours or 2 weeks. But I haven't gone through all the financials for compared to like last year. One thing, we didn't seek out any new customers this year because we didn't know what was happening in the world. But I feel like the volume and just the volume that we moved was a lot. And I think that they were busier than they were in years past. And in June, talking to chefs that, were closed for the month of May, or like April and May, where they reopened, by the end of June, a lot of them had said that they were almost at capacity of last year's for their dining experience or service. And last year was a record year for most of our restaurants in the Flathead Valley. So we got that feedback, and that was startling because they're only having like 75% seating capacity, and yet they're still, I mean, some of them were ordering, things that they order every year, even in greater capacity than past years. So I don't know if people were just coming here to escape COVID, because at that point in time we had like hardly any cases. So I don't know. It was crazy.
It definitely created issues with like talking to farmers in the spring about what restaurants wanted. And they were all like, we don't want anything. And then all of a sudden they opened up and they were having booming business. And then they were looking for food, but like none of the farmers had planned for it. And then you try to scramble to get food for them, and then they'd shut down for 2 weeks and didn't want any. So it was definitely, it was a weird year that way. I think maybe we picked the worst strategy, which was to keep doing everything. We should have just circled the wagons and picked one thing. Like, we increased the CSA thinking the markets would drop, but then we still did all 3 markets and they didn't really drop. And then we kept doing wholesale through Wicked Good Produce. So I don't know. I think we should have dropped at least one of those.
So Todd, you did, I guess Brooke, you also did the Whitefish Market, and then Todd, you also did the Kalispell and Columbia Falls Market. I'm curious, I understand that you were substantially as busy as before, but overall, were the populations at the markets the same or lower, or how did
Kalispell was about the same throughout the whole season as it was last year, which was our best year. So it was our best market, but it was a lot harder because you had social distancing, people couldn't touch food. So instead of people shopping and then checking out, we were having to pack their orders as they pointed to stuff. And so logistically we needed more people at market having to work harder to do it. So Kalispell was good. Whitefish was maybe similar to Missoula in that they delayed the start, and then it started really slow. Plus you had all the construction issues downtown. Then it finally like kicked up to where it kind of usually is, but only for maybe 4 weeks out of the 20-week season. And then it dropped back off again really fast. So there was just a quick burst. And then Sioux Falls, because that was an evening market where everybody was there to have beer and wine, or beer and cocktails, I think, and buy veggies. With that not happening, Sioux Falls was really painful. It was like 50% of usual every single week. So that was a tough one to go to.
I'm sorry to say that I did not go to market this summer. And so I've forgotten the effort that you guys had to go to put into, the social distancing and that's just a whole other layer of market.
Yeah, and it was tricky because like market staff would give you, the health department was requiring everybody to have masks. And then the market was requiring everybody, but in like Sioux Falls, the market staff wouldn't intervene if people didn't have masks. So they were trying to push the farmers to be the police. And we had to push back and be like, that's not why we're here. It's hard enough as it is. So there was a lot of tension. One unique thing about Whitefish, more than any market, is that the people attending the market were not necessarily the locals. There was like a whole new demographic in Whitefish, which I think was just because so many people are moving here. But like, I mean, there's people from like downtown Los Angeles shopping the Whitefish Farmers Market, and it's clearly evidenced. So that was a little unique too, to see the demographic shift.
One thing that we noticed, because we were at the farm, we accepted all of our customers' compost back. We had biodegradable bags, and so they could just bring their compost, and then I would dump it out of the biodegradable bag into our worm bins. And through seeing what people threw away, I was like, holy crap, people do not know how to eat vegetables. You know, that there was a lot of, you know, they would throw away the whole chard stem, or one week we had given cabbage in a bag, and then 3 weeks later they put the whole cabbage into the compost. And, you know, it's like, God, I'm going to be eating the same cabbage in March that we have now. So I'm just telling that story because I think we need a think tank around helping people figure out what they're supposed to do with their CSA or their vegetables in general. But it was really interesting being able to see what people were throwing away. And it was a lot.
Yeah,
No wonder people think CSA is expensive if you're going to throw away half of it.
I mean, we had talked about doing a retail store and maybe working with Brooke on the wholesale end of it, but as part of that was the idea of having a kitchen in there that could do grab and go meals, or like, it's almost as if you have to show people what to do with it first.
Yeah.
You know, like, cook the food for them. And I don't know.
Well, that's interesting if that's where we're at. You know, do you guys have a trade association? I mean, if you want a little cheat sheet on how to cook your vegetables, you could all go together and create some materials that you could all use together for your customers. Because I never would have thought that people are having, you know, I mean, that's very interesting.
It was. I was really surprised. But I think, I don't know, because the information is there. I mean, you know, you Google how to wrangle a cabbage. I mean, I don't know. It's
assume nothing, you know, hand out the card with the cabbage.
Yeah.
It's just hard. It's hard as a farmer. It's like you already are doing so much, and it's like, at what point do like some other sector step in?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If there's a trade association that could create all those materials for you, for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, what I hear you guys saying is it'd really be nice if somebody opened a store and we could just drop all the food off there, and a generation from there, you're back to Safeway. You know, I think local markets would be great. Local stores is how it used to work, you know, and I hear you guys saying that we can grow the food, you know, and maybe distribute it, but ideally, it's easy for both the customer and the farmer if there's this one kind of place where things can be exchanged. And it sounds like a store is more efficient than a farmer's market.
I think it's more predictable.
Yeah.
It's more convenient. It's more predictable. Like Kaylee was saying, what if you pick a whole day's worth of produce and then it happens to rain the next day when there's a market and nobody shows up at market? It's like, you can't put that food back in the ground. And you don't have a secondary use for it. Like, there's a lot of risk. It's like boom or bust, that market.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas,
Like building redundancy into the system, either with a store or with, you know, we have kind of a reverse thing in Helena where it's amazing that the Helena food share I think has kept over, I can't remember that. It's an extraordinary amount of food out of the landfill. I mean, millions of pounds by arrangements with the grocery stores so that their food waste doesn't go to this is kind of a reverse problem from what you guys have, but it's interesting that these networks do happen. What they can give to their clients, they do, and the rest either goes to animals or it goes to compost. So it's really been interesting how they've created those networks. To reverse that the other way, if you had an excess of stuff that was picked, but there were restaurants ready to, somebody would be in the middle of that going, well, let's do a salad special over at XYZ restaurant and take a bunch of your greens. I mean, we're basically trying to build a more redundant,
I mean, I think
multifaceted,
I think we always use CSA for that. We have a refrigerator truck. So when we're at market, we leave most of it in the truck. We pull it out as we need it. Anything we don't sell is still fresh. It hasn't been sitting on the stand. And then we have 5 CSA drop-offs a week. So the next day you can put that fresh produce into CSA. And that's the only redundancy we have.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. There needs to be other outlets.
So, and like we've often talked about normalizing the local food system in some of our meetings over the last few years. And if you had a storefront, I mean, we do have like our local markets like 3rd Street Market and Marcus Foods and Mountain Valley Foods, but that's where people go to shop. Like I'm always so impressed by CSA members that come to pick up wherever they're going to pick it up, whether it be a drop location. It's a scheduled time. They have to make a point in their life to be like, I'm committed to going for X amount of weeks and picking up produce. I'm always like, I can't believe you really do this. Like I would be a terrible CSA member. I'd flake out. I wouldn't go. Like I'd be like the CSA member you want to fire. And so it just isn't, I mean, it works. The model works and I'm grateful for the community members who do it, but it's not normal. Like I go grocery shopping whenever I want, right? Because their grocery stores are open for extended periods of time. And you can feel like, I don't have to be like, it's 5 o'clock, I have to go to my pickup spot. I'd be terrible at that.
I'm picking up 2 things here. One is, Pam, I was really struck by your point about discovering how people manage their food by what you took in as waste. And this concept of Max, you talking about, putting together information on how to use your food. And I am a recent aficionado of the 6-minute video because I have discovered that that's how that's the maximum I can look at a video, but you can communicate a lot in 6 minutes. So one thought I was having is we could teach people about how to deal with their food in 6-minute videos. So that's one thing. But the other piece of it is, what is the mindset that we're at a point where people don't know, adults don't know how to process their food? And I actually think it's hard to educate an adult to take care of their food if they haven't gone through the effort of growing it, like I've watched people, as I'm sure you guys have, throw away an apple because there's a bruise on it. And, it's just, I can't breathe when I see that. But my thought was, okay, so the video is fine, but maybe we have I don't know, somebody has that conversation as part of the harvest of the month. We talk about, we educate the student, the kid, that to normalize, because that's part of the normalizing is that we think it's, I mean, I agree with you about it. So the second point is that I agree with you about the ease of a store. But there's this fine line between, we used to put in a whole lot more effort to take in the nutrients that keep us sustained. And now we expect that it should be easier and easier and easier. And it just puts the burden someplace else.
Well, you're a couple generations away from what you're talking about. So, You learn what you learn growing up.
Right. And we're 3 generations out from when people had a connection to it. You know, from my seed work, I'm pretty clear that if you're under the age of 70, by and large, you were not taught by an elder when you were growing up how to save seed. And if you're under the age of 50, by and large, you were not taught by an elder growing up how to grow food. And like, that's the cutoff. And so now,
Or how to cook food.
yeah. So anywho, I don't know. These are just,
Well, if it is the big reset, I mean, this is so interesting because we talk about one of the things that the food share wants to do. They're just looking at doing a capital campaign to get into a better building, and they want to have a teaching kitchen there for their clients because they have that problem with a lot of their clients don't necessarily know what to do with the fresh produce. And it's interesting that that's sort of starting at that level, the vulnerable, level of our population, when you have educated people that don't think, waste it's not an ethical issue to them. I mean, Robin, you said you hold you freak out when you see food being thrown away. There's a real disconnect in so many things in our community, say Helena, not try to be abstract about it. And as many people that do get it and love good food, a lot don't. And the only thing I know how to do is to try to imagine 5 years from now, this is different. And then you have to sort of get together with people and kind of work backwards. What happened to make it different? Because I don't know what those answers are, but it's almost like you got to get 20 people in the room and try to tease this out for the community that you're in. I mean, we're envious of you guys over in Kalispell Whitefish for all your great local growers. We just think you live in paradise. And you have enough eaters that you're all still in business, and yet now I'm hearing the challenges in paradise. And it's making me rethink, are we even asking the right questions in Helena to try to have a more robust local food system here? I think it's a real interesting systems kind of question, that we're all asking for the whole state in a way.
I think part of it is designing a system where you don't need every individual to make the best choices. It's almost like you design good choices into the system,
So what does that look like to you?
Well, it's like, oh, people need to compost and know what to do with their food. And it's like, well, okay, well, or you have someone start a really convenient composting business like Alyssa at Dirt Rich, or what Pam's doing at the farm. You make composting easy. Mm-hmm. Or Gretchen often talks about the grocery store that used to have all the educational signs and the farmer signs in the produce section, where you're not just shopping, but you're being taught about all of that. I feel like it's to have a space where instead of just consumption, convenient consumption, it's like there's education happening at the same time. Mm-hmm. And maybe somewhere like the Good Food Store in Missoula accomplishes that, but I don't know. I think.
Can I ask a question? Let me introduce myself real quick, guys. Sorry, I didn't pick up enough to turn the camera on, but I'm part of the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub. We're a growers co-op in Eastern Montana based in Billings, and very small, kind of modeled after Western Montana Growers Co-op. I'm wondering what especially the growers think about that collaborative model of a lot more working together to get some of these goals like education and community education about food and composting and things. That's our goal, is to combine our energy into that kind of stuff. And so first off, I guess I'm wondering, like, what is Western Montana Growers Co-op to you guys? Is it doing any of that stuff? Is it just a wholesaler? Like, is that not what their model really is? Because that's what we're trying to kind of capture as a real co-op model over here.
Well, I can touch on that because I think I'm the only grower here that's a member of the Growers Co-op, and we've been a member of the Growers Co-op for like 9 years. And so absolutely the growers co-op for us handles all of our restaurant and grocery store accounts. So they do the marketing, they do distribution, they do the invoicing. You know, we simply pack our orders and they come to the farm and pick up the produce. So they do a tremendous amount of work for us, and our business would
Yeah.
not be anywhere where it is today without being members of the Western Montana Growers Co-op. That being said, the price we get for the produce we sell to them is about half of the price you get when you sell produce direct to consumers. And so that's kind of a piece too that, you know, I don't feel like we've mentioned here is all of us CSA and farmers market growers, we do that because we want to achieve the highest price we can. And if you aren't selling to a distributor or to a store, you don't have to cover their, you know, their capital investments that they're trying to pay off and be a business. So as far as like the educational piece that the co-op does, you know, we as a co-op, and I'm also on the board, but we as a co-op haven't really done any, we don't do any sort of consumer education. We are a marketing and distributing co-op for the growers. And the co-op also does run a CSA program. And so I think that probably their education is really similar to all of us CSA growers, where you do a newsletter and you're just, you know, you're just trying to encourage people to try eating local, try eating fresh. Can they incorporate it? Can they make this a habit?
Tom, this is Robin. How are you envisioning this concept of a co-op that does include education? I mean, what are you thinking about?
Well, we're direct marketing too, mostly now. The idea is just that, like a percentage of the cut that the food hub is taking goes to things like, besides just marketing distribution, but also to capture some of those big picture regional system questions to try to, and ultimately, is that what this a co-op food hub is for? Is it a nonprofit's job or something to do that? But I feel like that's the best use of the energy of this kind of a project, is to put, you know, shave a little off from everybody instead of each individual farm having to do their own education component, their own outreach, their own farm tour scheduling, their own policy work at the state level. Like, let's get everybody together and everybody, you know, shaves off a little time and does it together. That's all. You know, we are very small and still even working out our percentages and what our markets are. But education comes up all the time about teaching customers, retail or wholesale, why and where their food comes from, why it costs what it does, you know, why they should be buying local versus from somewhere else. So I don't know, just that education part is a tricky one, that's for sure.
It's definitely, the business side is tricky. You know, we do mostly direct to consumer. Kaylee now does both wholesale and direct to consumer, but I was at Eco Farm a couple of years ago, and the big food hub, Feed Sonoma, the guy started by saying, we want fair prices to farmers, we want nutritious food for people, and we want affordable prices for consumers. You can have any two out of the three.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start talking about shaving off even more off of that, you just have to make it work. You know, if you're going to shave off for education, what you're saying is kind of like the checkoff programs where everybody contributes a little bit. Yeah, it's tricky, especially when the system that we're trying to replace is a system that's using, you know, all the lettuce right now is being grown in Yuma, Arizona by migrant workers. It's, you know, it's a tough playing field to work in.
This is Robin. So I just want to tell you about something that we are starting to dive into. So yeah, you may or may not know, we have the Abundant Montana directory, which is, you know, an online directory. We're currently updating it with some CARES grant money to make it easier to use and to provide listers the opportunity to sell directly from the site if they want. And we are looking into the potential of a project to take that concept of the directory and expand its function and impact as a statewide promoter of local food. And there, I mean, yes, we do that already, but no, we really don't, because we really, up until now, have only used grant money to maintain that site, and it needs a much more robust regular influx of cash to do the job well. And we're using a model that's come out of Michigan called Taste the Local Difference. I'm just going to put it in the chat here. And we have an opportunity to contract with them to have them help us figure out if we can actually make this a revenue-driven model. And the thing about it that I find so attractive is what they have built into their system is it's a dynamic relationship with folks with boots on the ground in different regions of the state who are doing the work, with the community that they are in, and all the farmers and the retailers and the processors and the distributors, to help engage that community around local food and help do the cross promotion and help do the education. And so there's this, support going to the different regions with people actually there helping to do some of this work that we're all trying to do in different ways. And then that promotional effort kind of comes back to the hub, and by listing with the center and maybe using some marketing services or whatever, there's a statewide presence that is making it easier for people to find the food in the areas, but specifically there's this engaged way to help with consistent standardized branding on, for example, topics relating to education in the grocery stores, helping provide provide farm tours, all these various things that everybody's working on. It's, basically, anyways, I'm repeating myself. We're just starting after the new year. We're really going to dive into it. We've given ourselves 3 to 4 months to figure out whether we can translate something that works in a state that has 10 million people and is second in the country in terms of the diversity of its specialty crops, and see if that works in Montana, which has, a different setup of specialty crop diversity and population. But
So Robin, does
Yeah.
the trade association model make any sense? In that everybody, kind of like the, Yellowstone Valley Food Hub, it's like there's kind of a member orientation that helps one finance the bigger picture work. And, Abundant Montana, it's almost like people would subscribe to it or something, or be part of an association working on how to create a more local system. Do they have that in Michigan? Do you know? Or
it's not, it's more robust than a trade association, unless you include anybody anywhere associated with the food system as a member, which,
Okay.
if you eat, you're in.
Okay.
So yeah, so it includes not only, basically the model is if you're a farmer, you don't have to pay to be listed, and there are additional services that the hub can provide that make your ability to promote yourself easier, and those do cost. And you can also be a member, if you will, as an eater, as what's called a local food enthusiast. So in that way, I would say, yes, it is a trade association, and it's inclusive for everybody who survives by eating food.
I think that was really good. It addresses the demand half of the equation. I'm kind of curious from Mark and Tom and Andrew and Max, I feel like the elephant in the room is sort of the supply side of, at least from a vegetable standpoint. I know meats and grains, there tends to be adequate production, and they're looking for maybe better prices from their markets. They want to get away from commodities and go direct to
Yeah.
consumer. But in the vegetable world, it's like there's a lot of parts of the state where there is no supply.
Yeah.
So trying to create demand kind of falls flat if you don't. It's kind of like this circular process.
Yep.
I know with like Dillon Strike and Bozeman going out of business, that was like a big loss for normalizing local food.
Yeah.
What's it look like elsewhere in the state?
Well, one of the problems in Helena for me is that I have a garden, so I don't need to go to the market as much. And I'm sort of learning that I like the market best for the fall. I can never grow as many squashes as I can just go down and the bin from the Western Montana growers go up, sitting there in a real food store and get all the beautiful squashes I want instead of trying to grow them myself. So I'm learning how to, I like to support the growers, but then there's a lot of things I don't need in the height of the season. On the other side of that, you go to White Sulphur Springs with fresh lettuce. I think it takes a while before people know they could have something like that, and then they want it and show up enough to support whoever's bringing it to them.
Mhm.
It's a chicken and an egg thing, I think. And then, Billings has very few growers. I mean, relatively very few growers, very little actual real produce being grown in the area. And yeah, what comes first, the grower or the man or both? Or I guess that's one small thing we're just trying to do with the local food scene here is create some demand maybe, and then some growers will come in. I don't know. It's a very good question.
And tell me if I'm wrong, Tom, but my understanding is that it could be a good growing climate for, if you had the demand, there would be, it's not, you have sunshine. You're on the east side. Is that true? Am I correct that it's good for growing vegetables?
Yeah, I'm not much of a produce person myself, so honestly, I can't give you exact growing, frost dates and things, but I think we're a little better over this way. Is that correct?
Gotta be better than whitefish.
Yeah.
Say that again, Todd?
I said it's got to be better than whitefish.
There's a lot of great farm ground along the river, and
Yeah.
That's kind of what I assume, and it's probably cheaper this way too, right? So I don't know.
Mhm.
Well, I think it's the culture. I think it might start with the low. There's a couple good restaurants in Billings that do local food, and then it has to of course, that's higher end people. But there is a cultural. I think Western Montana has over 30 years created a knowledge and desire for local food and fresh food and knows what it is, but that doesn't seem to exist in Billings. So,
No, we're jealous.
and how long does it take to create a culture like that? Did they ever, that's almost like a problem for a sociologist or something.
That's sort of what the role of the farmer's market is.
I
It's
think
kind
so.
of like a gateway drug for local produce. People go for as mentioned previously, the social contact as much as anything, and then they get produce and it's kind of reinforcing the cycle there. I spent a lot of time in Houston, Texas, that had a small farmers market, and they really kind of led the explosion in interest in local food, and it's grown considerably. And I understand, I'm hearing the issues with farmers markets, but I do think that's kind of a good lead. And I'm curious, Tom, what kind of farmers market infrastructure you have in Billings?
Well, it was all different this year, of course, but the downtown Billings Farmers Market, I think, is the biggest in the state. At least they claim. 60, 70 vendors, maybe something like that. And I do that. I've done that one for a few years. This year they shut that one down and they split them all out. So people were kind of ad hoc starting their own. There were 4 or 5 little ones all over town. But that scene is, I guess, robust is what I'd say in Billings. But yeah, there's still kind of that, still a step behind maybe from the rest of the state for the local food interest.
There's a woman farmer. She and her husband have a they actually have a full-time business doing high voltage maintenance, but nonetheless, they grow their own food. They live in Martinsdale. And her response, I don't know if it was from COVID or she started it a couple years ago, but she does a solo pop-up farmers market in Martinsdale. And I think this year she added CSAs because there were people asking for food, but she does a solo farmers pop-up in Martinsdale, and then they drive 40 miles, or I don't know, maybe it's 30 miles to Harlequin every week and do a solo farmers market there.
So it's just it's beginning.
Yeah, beginning. And she sells, in addition to her produce, she buys Montana made products and sells them. She's got like 6, but you know, she's introducing them to people.
Nice. Huh.
So, you know, I have to say, I hear everybody, I empathize beyond more than you can imagine for what you guys do with the farmers markets. And I have always assumed you did it because it was simply out of the kindness of your hearts to be so generous with your time and your effort. But I guess it does really play that foundational role. Yeah, a tricky thing.
Sorry, Pam and Kaylee, you have to come back to the markets now.
No,
Yeah, it could be smaller farms. It doesn't have to be you guys.
right.
Well, it makes room for other farmers that haven't figured out what you guys have figured out yet.
But I do think that's a good point, is they are foundational to building a local food system. And as a beginning farmer, there is no way we could have established ourselves without doing farmers market.
Right. Yeah, I feel like for years we made very little money at farmers market, but it was our advertising budget. We were making money instead of paying for advertising. So,
And I think it's important that the market is supporting local farmers, because I know elsewhere in the country, a lot of markets, like 80% of the vendors are just buying food from elsewhere and reselling, right? They're not even the farmers, and the consumer has no idea. And so it's really important to have a good framework. We're lucky in the Flathead that there's boundaries about where the food comes from, and it's really set up to help us as farmers.
So this question about the new farmer, the established farmer, I mean, and cycling off maybe as you get to a certain size or whatever, or, you know, maybe you don't need it. I'm just curious if you can think back to the Whitefish or even Missoula or any of these other markets pre-COVID, did it feel like it was kind of getting saturated with, you know, the number of different farmers offering the same vegetables? Like, was there ever any issue happening there? Or no?
I felt like our market was busy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I would say every year the Clark Fork market got busier, and there would be a few new produce vendors coming in, but there wasn't a ton of new vendors. But I think just from chatting with the vendors that were there, everybody was getting busier. And the Clark Fork market they've got some percentages, you know, of how many growers can be there versus food products. So they really kind of try to keep it balanced.
I do think it can be a challenge, I'm sure, for new farmers who are coming in. Like, you hope the market's growing and so the pie gets bigger and there's always more room. But I know the young guns that are coming in, it's hard. You basically have to, if the market's the same size, you have to take market share from another established farm, and that can be a challenge. I know Brooke and I talked about that. Kind of part of the reason Wicked Good Produce started was, it was like, why fight for market share if there's like another opportunity sitting there waiting to be, you know, accessed, and maybe that's a better entry point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think later in this series, there's going to be a presentation from somebody from Gallatin Valley that processes local food for institutional users. I'm curious what you guys think about. Is that an opportunity, or?
I think it's a huge opportunity. I do.
Can you say more? Like,
Who, me?
yeah,
Or-
yeah, I'm curious, like, what's the thinking happening there between the two? You guys are having a intellectual conversation. I don't know what you're saying.
Well, I think there's, like, we talk about a circular food system, and, you know, when you think about the processing sector, at least in the Flathead, there isn't one. You know, meat knows this, right? And there's now a lot of money pouring into meat processing. Lake County, Mission Mountain Food Enterprise Center is established, but for our community, there's a ton of opportunity. There's farms that have seconds and surplus production, and it could easily be converted into some value added product, but there's nobody doing that. And so I think that's a great entry point.
The co-op, let's see, it was probably 4 years ago was the peak of our processed food project. And we were using Mission Mountain Food Enterprise Center and processing food, and then it was getting frozen, and then we were trying to get people to buy it, and we don't do it anymore. We do it for very few products, and I think some of the struggles that we found was that it's really expensive and it's really challenging to get a price point that consumers are willing to pay for. And it's also, if you're talking about processing to like extend your local eating season, it's also getting consumers to buy frozen product. Particularly, I think a lot of our consumers are very health conscious and would probably think that a fresh product is tastier and more nutritious. And so you're also trying to get them to switch their buying habits. I think, you know, but I also know, you know, Lifeline Produce down in the Bitterroot, they were losing market share because, you know, like Mustard Seed didn't want to buy, they didn't want to buy whole cabbage anymore. They wanted sliced cabbage. Good Food Store Deli doesn't want to buy kale anymore as a bunch of kale. They want to buy it chopped up. So I think that there is definitely market for it. I think the economics of it are potentially very challenging.
And I think that comes back to my idea of like a retail outlet, even if you're adding value, but you're creating, and instead of processing food to sell it as a wholesale input, like taking a cabbage and shredding it, if you turn that cabbage into a ready to eat meal,
Yeah.
so you're processing it upwards to where the price is higher, maybe gets around that issue. And granted, I think the scale is much more limited to do that than it would be to just sell shredded cabbage to wholesale.
Well, there is, what's it, Robin? Is it Root Cellar in Bozeman in Belgrade? Isn't that what they do? They take produce and they package it they kind of prep it for restaurants and stuff.
But they've struggled. I think at the Aero Expo last year, there was a tour, and they definitely, they had supply issues, and then they had cost issues with, like Kaylee was saying.
But they had that, I mean, they had the, you know, I guess I went on that field trip too, and they had the equipment and it was all set up, and you'd hope that it would work because it was a good idea. Again, I think the education part, that I just can't imagine how this year with all the restaurants not being open full bore, how it just affected people trying to create that kind of a model. It just made it very hard.
And you guys in the Flathead know that, I'm assuming that Farmented has moved to the Flathead. You know, so they just moved their operation to the Flathead like a month or two ago.
Who are they?
They were in Bozeman, and so they've moved everything up here, and that this is where they'll be located. I don't know what their capacity is, but I presume that they'll be sourcing from you guys next year.
Brooke?
I've had conversations with them before about contracts and trying to get food to them. So maybe this year will happen.
Yeah. One of the
we dealt with the Flathead Vanessa. They're both Vanessa, I think, but that would be great. But there were definitely issues with them knowing ahead of time how much they needed and having, you know, the lag time of growing it. But yeah, that's a great example.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to stay as long as we want, and I'm just cognizant that it's 6:43.
Yeah.
So I want to give you guys a heads up that we've gone past the 6:15 frame, and give people permission to leave if they'd like to leave. And I'm happy to stay on because I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation. So
It's just like a real happy hour.
Yeah, well, I do need to go, but it's been fun to see those of you I know, and I really enjoyed the discussion. Thanks.
Max, I do have a comment to you that I wrote down when you were talking
Uh-huh.
about the Helena food share
Yeah.
and people cooking.
Yeah.
It's not just people in poverty that don't know how to cook.
No,
It's
I
a
understand
lot of
that.
people.
Yeah.
And then also, I just remember Joan, when she was in college, worked on this project with people in poverty, and she was trying to give them beans and whole, dry beans. And they were like, we don't have anywhere to cook this. So the capacity to process the food, the
Mhm.
knowledge is part of it, but also
Mhm.
just the capacity to
Yeah.
process it.
No,
So,
no, I get all that. And
Okay.
no, I actually mentioned it because the irony of it that we may start doing food education at that end when, like a lot of people need it to
Right.
start paying attention. Anyway, it's really nice to see you guys. I hope to see you on a few of these down the next couple of days.
yeah,
all right, have a good night.
bye.
I'm gonna split too. I gotta go eat some dinner. Thanks for putting this together and opening up the invitation.
You bet. Thanks, Kaylee.
Yep.
I'm
Bye.
sorry I missed the first part. I'm sure it was great, but thank you for everything.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Good conversation. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
I would say our trade association is Montana Farmers Union.
Mhm.
And they have they're funded. They've got a lot of money. So join Farmers Union. And then Robin, also the CFAC passport. I haven't looked that much into it, but that seems super cool.
It does. It does. They're doing great work.
So like, as far as the idea of selling Abundant Montana to consumers, if we can add like the coin that if they have this passport, they get to something from the consumers. I mean, from the producers. That might be a way to generate some money.
Yep.
That's all my notes.
Cool. I'm not a big retail person is the problem. So, but yes, other people with better minds are figuring this out. That's
Thanks
great.
so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to see you, Todd. Andrew, nice to see your name.
Are you involved, Robin, with Montana Farmers Union at all?
Yeah, we're on a bi-weekly food access call. I talk to Walter quite frequently. Are you familiar with what he's doing right now?
I'm not really familiar. I mean, even the whole Montana Farmers Union, I've seen kind of their presence a little bit, but not much on the west side. I know a lot of people on the east side, like Jacob Cogill and Bob Quinn, were always talking.
So Walter Schweitzer is Brian Schweitzer's, I'm assuming, brother, and very forward thinking, very, just a farmer version of Brian, I guess. I don't really know Brian at all, but he lobbied to become president of the Farmers Union and has been working really hard to try to kind of make it, I think, the organization that was around when his dad was a kid, probably, to really be an advocate for farmers and ranchers. And so, and one of the big things, if you catch him on any level, he is just all about really working to break the monopolies that are being held by all the four large meat processors in the country, and that aren't even owned in the country anymore, and to get back to the country of origin labeling for meat. So he's really focusing quite a lot on meat, and he has just put together a cooperative of meat producers, farmers, beef ranchers, to buy a mobile processing unit that will be USDA certified, and it's going to be housed, I think, at Rocky Boy, and it's in concert with a curriculum that's being developed with MSU Northern in Havre, so that we being the state of Montana, can develop the expertise and and technical expertise to have certified processors and butchers come out of the curriculum. And then the idea is that the cooperative buys the unit and it can process their heads of cattle, at the level that they need. And it's USDA certified and it's in their area. So you're not shipping your cows all over the place. And if it's successful, which they've just been there's been a lot of positive feedback to the idea, and he's got, I think, enough people to form the cooperative. If it's successful, then it becomes a model that could be replicated in other parts of the state. So all that's to say that he's working hard. Yeah.
It seems like the meat sector is getting, it's like as vegetable world was having all this success, it's like meat and grains were struggling, especially meat due to limited processing. And it seems like that's reversed a little bit now to like meat is getting a lot of emphasis.
Yeah.
And that grant that just came out this past summer, where like $150,000 grants were going out to a lot. I mean, I think it's long overdue, but I think finally meat producers are realizing that their only market is not the commodity feedlot market. Like they're finally gaining access to direct markets, or trying to. So I do think that's a great change.
It is a big change. There's like so much more to it. I listen to it a lot, and I really only understand a very small portion of it. And still there's this tension with the price point that you can get for your cow if you process it in state and sell it in state, and the cost to you to do that versus being able to just have the big guys just buy it from you and take it, That's the struggle. And so far the only people who are really able to survive financially selling in state, according to the people that I'm listening to, are those who are certified organic. Not, Montana made is not enough yet, but that's out of state. And so the idea is that if we really could help develop the in-state model, the in-state market, and COVID has been helpful for that, because people are starting to buy meat locally, from a food security thing. So yeah, I feel like there's an opportunity here.
I think we tried, I think in the early days, chicken was like the example.
Mm-hmm.
Same idea, mobile processing units were all the rage 10 years ago. I think with that though, because it's such a small animal, it was same thing. The processing expense of a single chicken made the cost, plus good feed and humane treatment, it made the cost of a chicken not viable.
Yeah.
Maybe cattle, being it's a larger animal per processing, maybe it fits the model better. I don't know.
I'm not sure, but the folks who have more information think it will. So yeah. But one of the big things that Grow Montana is going to work on in the 2021 legislative session is mid-level vegetable processing. Really try to push to get more of those built in areas around the state, because that really was a barrier with the disruption in COVID. Just nobody could handle the quantities that were being run around saying, here, you can have it if you can do something with it. So I don't know, we'll see. I mean, vegetable processing is still, as you said, it's key.
It's key. I guess it's the whole system though. It's like if you're small farms who want retail prices, then vegetable processing maybe isn't attractive to you, because they're going to want to back off that price, right, way down to like, well, we need our margin, and then the retailer needs the margin. And I think it's just that idea of running the numbers and like doesn't make sense? Or do vegetable processors need fundamentally larger, higher volume farms, right? So
Yeah.
does production have to shift to have processing? I don't know. It's all, yeah, constantly evolving, I guess.
I was surprised. I did not know that about Montana Growers Co-op, that they had been processing and then they decided not to do it. And that was surprising to me to hear that. That's a huge decision to start and then a huge decision to stop.
Because I know I'm assuming Mission Mountain Food Enterprise Center still processes for people, but it's a co-op that decided not to have their food processed. I think that's what Kaylee was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just surprised because you would think that that would be a useful, helpful. I mean, obviously that's what they thought when they started. Hey, this will be a great idea.
Yeah.
It just,
But then it's hard because as you add, if you're starting with a higher price food to begin with, a fair price to the farmer, and you're adding layers of costs, and then at the end you're trying to sell it to a wholesale institution that wants wholesale prices. It's that struggle of how do you make all those numbers, like where do you subtract? Do you pay the farmer less? Do you pay the processor less? Do you make the institution pay more? It's like,
yeah,
I hate to say it always comes down to that, but
it's true. I
It
mean,
is. math.
what did you say? You can have 2 out of the 3. What was that thing you learned at Eco Farm?
Fair prices to farmers, healthy, nutritious food, and an affordable price for consumers.
Wow.
So what do you want to do? Pay farmers nothing? Do you want to grow like chemical intensive agriculture, or do you want high prices for people? But to check all 3 of those boxes is virtually impossible. So it's a real conundrum.
Wow, that is really depressing.
And it's true, if you look at any model, you can typically see like, oh, Whole Foods, whole paycheck, right? And then, or, affordable food, but look at this, look at what the farm workers are
Yeah.
going through. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an eye opener for sure.
Wow.
Well,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
But we
it's all good. It's just when you think too deeply about the system, you're like, yeah. It's one thing to make a living as an individual farm, acting alone, trying to control all your own variables.
Yeah.
Way harder to think like system wide, what makes the system work.
Yeah.
So many pieces.
Yeah. Wow. That was really, yeah. And the other piece that was really mind blowing was Pam's comment about what people are throwing away.
Yeah. I have no idea. It's funny she mentioned cabbage because I know in our CSA newsletters I started to joke about we only give out 2 cabbages in the whole season, and usually like 3 weeks apart. And I've gotten so much feedback. I've started to joke like, okay, you're getting your second cabbage for those of you who still have the first cabbage in your refrigerator. And people will write back like, how did you know I still have the cabbage from 3 weeks ago? So it's a real thing. It's, Kaylee does customizable CSA, but we don't. So we know people get stuff and they probably just throw it out, which else,
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know.
Okay.
I still go back to the food bank and it's like, I don't know. I still think they have a role. I think the food bank needs like a cook on hand
Oh,
to take and process food. Instead of giving food bank members fresh vegetables, it's like, don't give them fresh vegetables, give them soup. Or
Yeah.
give them the stir fry, or give them something
yeah.
that's ready to go.
Mhm.
Um,
I think the food bank is getting money that's going to support that. I think they're going to build a commercial kitchen.
Are they?
They're moving towards the Livingston model. And I think this summer, I think I heard that they had been, I don't know what they had to do or the vote or whatever, but they are going to the customer choice model rather than filling boxes.
Yeah, the pantry model, I think they call it. But
Um,
that's still just,
no, that's step one.
yeah.
And I think the you know, the restaurant group in town gave them money to build a commercial kitchen so they could process food.
Hmm.
That's what I heard.
That'd be great.
I feel like they're starting to move in that direction. I don't know.
Cool.
Oy.
Well,
Yeah. Well, this has been great. I learned a lot. I really enjoyed this conversation.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Like a week and a half more of them every night.
One more. Yeah, that's exactly right. A week and a half. A week and a night. A week and a night. Just